So now it's over to you. I'm going to invite Val, Charlie and Lauren to join me on screen, and we'll try and answer some of your questions.
Thanks, Leanne. So we've had a few questions come in already, and I would encourage everyone, if you've got a question, please do, if you click on the Q&A button, which is next to chat, and post your question there, and we will do our best to answer them. So the first question that has come in is from East Kilbride. It was very encouraging to hear from the Beacon of Hope team. Is there anything to be done about reducing Kenya's debt?
Thank you for that question. I think that's a great question, because as many of you will remember, we were talking about debt before the turn of the century, and we were asking for what were unpayable debts to be cancelled so that some of the world's poorest countries could then use that money to invest in healthcare, education, and in their own infrastructure. Some of that debt was cancelled. Some of it was cancelled with conditions. Some of those conditions then led to unfair trade practices and also very low tax rates, which has then enabled a lot of large companies to extract resource from some of the world's poorest countries while paying minimal tax. But we are now back in a situation where some of the world's poorest countries find themselves once again in debt, and paying ridiculous amounts of interest. Now, this time, the debt is being owned by private creditors, and these private creditors have loaned money to some of the world's poorest countries, especially off the back of COVID and of catastrophic climate shocks, where governments have needed money in order to recover. Now, private creditors will lend to all countries, but they lend to a country like Germany at about 8%, I think, or to the USA at about 6%. They're lending to some of the world's poorest countries, Kenya included, at 100, 150, 200% interest rates. And that means that countries are really struggling to service their debt. So Christian Aid has been doing two things. One, we've been campaigning for a loss and damage fund, because who pays when a poor farmer loses their crops because of a climate emergency, or when the cities are flooded? We've been asking that those who produce the most carbon and have caused the most damage or contributed the most to a catastrophic climate change will pay into a fund that would be accessible. But equally, we're now asking for private creditors to come back to the table to renegotiate debt. Now, any individual or company who found themselves unable to pay a debt would be allowed to come back to the table and renegotiate, but that is not being afforded to some of the world's poorest countries. And a lot of that debt is held by private companies that are governed by English law. And so we have been asking the UK government to use its influence to bring these countries back to the table. So hopefully, as that campaign goes on, we will be able to see some movement on what is unpayable debt.
Thanks, Val. Another question that has come in was just about when James was speaking in the Beacon of Hope video about safe space groups, and they're asking, do we know if the safe space groups ever combine and sell extra produce as a mini cooperative?
Yes, my understanding is yes, they do sometimes work as a cooperative. We certainly know in other projects where Christian Aid partners do similar work, those cooperatives form. But I think as well in the project that Beacon of Hope is running, those safe space groups, they function as peer support, they function as emotional safety circles, they function as savings groups, and they function as cooperatives, so that people can take their goods to market and get a better return on their investment.
Thanks, Charlie. I don't think any more questions have come in the Q&A box, Val, so I will pass to you now.
Thank you, everybody.